Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers. We're continuing on with the basic survival tutorial. We're a bit beyond the basics at this point. We are really base building at this point. So the idea, the concept here is that we have successfully secured our survival capability, which is really to say we have basically we have a source of power. So down here is this thing, even though I'm just flashing no energy, huh? There's some irony for you. Um, so we have an ability to maintain energy. We have an ability to maintain and replenish our gaseous supplies, which is to say oxygen and hydrogen. We have some storage. We have a capability of gathering raw materials and converting those raw materials. Let me go ahead and zoom under here so I can, yeah, there we go. So our refineries here, and I'm showing you the back side of the refineries, but here's the front side of those refineries. So we have the ability to gather raw materials. Our refineries here can take those raw materials, turn them into usable materials, and then right above this here, hard to see because it's encased in upgrade modules, but our assembler, which can then take those usable materials and convert them into components, which then we can use to build. So what we're doing here, or what we have been doing, is once we have secured our place in the universe, which we pretty much have, we have the ability to gather resources, we have the ability to convert those resources, and we have the ability to create components as we need. So pretty much it's the endless process now of just taking those components and getting enough of them to do what we want. And at this point, the want is base building. So that seems the logical next step to get from a secure position where we can do all the basics to a more base type position where we can do things on a much grander scale, which is really what this base is about. Now, the base building portion here was really this, and as you've seen in some of the other episodes, we have over here is our storage area. Over here we have power as well as gaseous generation. So even though we have a storage tank, which happens to be under this guy, storage tank for hydrogen, the only need for hydrogen is actually in our medical stations, which is to say to replenish our own supply in our suit. So that's the only thing that we need hydrogen for here. Unfortunately, the way the game is set up, you can't share already generated gases. So if I were to dock a ship here, I can't take tank stored oxygen or hydrogen and dump it into another ship. Unfortunately, you just can't do that. Why you can't do that, I have no idea. Hopefully someday they will have it fixed so tanks are actually reasonable in use. So at this point, can't share hydrogen, can't share oxygen, but we do have 10 oxygen generators, or rather gas generators, also in the center utility section. So that's what we spent the first couple episodes on, was actually building the basic stuff. In here was also reactors. So we had 4 reactors, which probably for a base this size is a bit overkill. We had a battery bank of 90 batteries, which again is probably overkill, but I like batteries. It's sometimes unfortunate that you run out when you didn't really realize that you ran out of uranium. So having those batteries there can be both a blessing and a curse because you might not notice. In this case, I actually did put up some LCDs that show us what's going on. So hopefully that will not be an issue. So what I do want to do is, just for convenience sake, I'm going to go ahead and turn on Space Master here for a moment, because what I want to do is paste a pre-made LCD panel. So I have this LCD panel assembly here that makes configuring LCD panels a lot easier. And what I mean by that is they're already pre-configured. I don't really have to fight with them. So in this case, I hate to put them on the orange. So I think I'll go ahead and put it there. I think that's mostly centered. These two are already configured, so I'm not really going to mess with those. But I do want to redo this one, and the only way I can really do that, let me check one more thing here. So roof hanger timers, I'm going to go ahead and take those off the toolbar and off the terminal, because I no longer need those. We actually configured those, and I kind of turned that into a tutorial of its own. So this is roof, so we're going to rename these as we're configuring them, and the reason for that is to differentiate them from the others. And this 1B was actually from a large spaceport, a large shipyard type port, and I spent time configuring the first like 3 sets, and then it's all like, why am I doing this? I should just make a set, configure it, and then save it as a set, which would save me the energy of configuration in the future, which I did. So I have a 4 panel version, which is this one, and a 5 panel, which actually adds another status LCD there. But the reason that I want to do this is I'm going to use so the power one here, I already have one configured inside. So what I'm going to do is do a Control A and a Control C, which is a copy, and then go to the roof power here, which is the one right in front of me here, and we'll do a Control A, which will select all, and then a Control V, which will paste. So I'm basically going to eliminate this and paste in the other one, which should fix a lot of the problems here on this particular one. So hopefully if that will update. Yes, it did. So the nice thing about these status panels, so to give you a little background information here, there's a modder out there on the workshop that goes by the name of M-Master, and he does quite a few really neat scripts. And one of the scripts is, I think it's called Automatic LCDs 2. LCDs 1, of course, was a while back, but Automatic LCDs 2. It's already been updated for 186, so everything works well. This version is actually the 186 version, so it's everything going well. But the reason I like this is you can see everything that's happening. So for example here, the 4 large reactors that you see here are showing up as on, so they are on and functioning, and you'll see those either on or off. Obviously there's not a whole lot of status in between there. They're either working or not working. But unique to each one of those is the amount of uranium in them, which is what this next line is. So 480K should fill this guy all the way up to the top. So right now it's about half, just better than half, but each one of these uranium indicators here is per that reactor. So this is actually an accurate indicator of what those reactors, as far as their fuel load, fuel status is right here on this display panel. So this is always a good thing to be able to actually see and say, oh, my reactor's running out. This is our status. So we're going to take the habitat status, which I already configured. We're going to do a Control A and a Control C to do the exact same thing here. And then we're going to go into roof status, which is the one right in front of me. We're going to do a Control A and then a Control V, which we'll paste on top of this. And then OK. And then this should update, and we're going to have to change the size here because things are going to roll off the screen, as you see here. So we're going to go OK to get back in here. We're going to scroll down just a little bit to the text side, and I think we're going to start out, we're going to go ahead and just do this at a 0.6 and see what happens. And hopefully that will stop our scrolling. Yes, it did. All right. So we have effectively put displays out here so we can see them. What I want to do is put another set on the front over here on the hangar bay. Not sure where to put that yet because it's all doors, so it might be kind of an interesting thing. In the interim, what I need to do is go down here and get some power. So T to jump in here, that should refill everything. So the synopsis here is that as you are building, you manage to secure your longevity, which is really what this satellite station was about. And once you're there, then you can start really just building and whatever it is that you might want to build. So we built the station here, this satellite, the utility satellite. We did some creative mining by hand. Then we built a small miner, which actually was we built it in another video. So it was just the mining drone, basic mining drone. And we started out with it drilled into this great big ball over here, which has thankfully all of the different resources that we might need. We came back, and once we had a reasonably adept mechanism of mining, so that's our raw materials, then we were pretty much at liberty to create the components as we needed them for whatever project we might need. In my case, our initial project was to build a large-scale miner, which is actually sitting over here. That's the medium miner that you can barely see the tag for over there. And it's a large miner. In fact, let's go ahead and we'll just zoom over there. It's a large miner, which is to say a large block miner, large grid. There's nothing elegant about it. It's a bunch of containers. It has 49 drills on the front. It has ore detection. It has all the stuff that you need for building a ship. So it's got gyros there, so we have our attitude controls. This one happens to be ion thrusters. The ion thrusters are actually really mostly adequate. If we load this thing all the way down to the gills, to the point where we're chucking ore out because the drills can't take it anymore, then it is really sluggish. I thought having seven thrusters on the side or 8 thrusters, which is really 16 thrusters in each direction, each of the cardinal directions, would be overkill, but in fact it's not. And this machine is pretty heavy all by itself. It's about 1.5 million kilograms all by itself. But again, nothing graceful about it, nothing creative here. This was a basic mining concept a little larger scale. I call it a medium because I have some much larger ones. And the whole idea behind this is to mine in a bit larger of a scale. So the small miners are fine and dandy, but having a big miner will let you really take in those materials and then use them how you need them. So that's what this was all about. So again, this is a vanilla miner. I may actually put this up on the workshop. I don't know yet. I haven't done it yet. But we built it in the videos, so usually when I do kind of semi-tutorial kind of a thing, I like to put them up on the website or the workshop, so everybody has access to them and everybody can play with them, tear them apart, crash them into your favorite asteroid, whatever you want to do. So once we secured the ability, so we have accomplished our basic survivability, so that is off the table. We started out with a small scale mining, which let us collect resources much more efficiently and effectively than doing it by hand, which was the goal. So the goal was to start taking in those resources much better, much faster, much more efficiently, which a mining ship of some kind can do much better than we can. So your drill is all fine and dandy, and certainly you can be much more surgically precise with, you know, I want to do this rock right here. That's all great, but given the quantities that you can take in versus the quantities that a mining vessel can take in, there's really no comparison. The mining vessel is much more efficient, effective at doing what it does. So we started out with a small miner, which is to say a small grid, small ship miner, which was very effective. It was a 4 drill unit. If there was any downside at all, it's that it was a drone. So what I had to do is stand off to one side, log into it via the remote control, and then use its cameras to guide and direct. So we did a little bit more playing. We put an apparatus on the end of it, connected into the connector which is there, which then enabled me to store a little bit, and then put a chair on it. So then I could actually access. I'm still using the remote control, but now I actually have a view capability, which I didn't before. So that was neat. The original design for that particular vessel, there was no place to put a seat, just because of the way it was built. The other downside to it was the drills. Actually, the small ship drills are they have an inventory space that is pretty much the same size as a medium container. So if you have 4 drills, then you actually have the cargo capacity of 4 medium containers already there. So that particular mining drone did not have any external storage capability. So that was a little bit awkward. We did have to stop and unload. Eventually I added on a cargo transmitter, which is obviously a mod, so not purely vanilla anymore, but what it enabled me to do was I can just keep right on mining. I don't have to stop, unload, come back, drill some more, stop, unload, come back, that sort of thing. So the cargo transmitter allowed me to transmit as I was pulling that ore into the system. It transmitted it right over to here, and then could start processing. Basically we have fulfilled our basic survival needs, and now we are to the point where we can build more large scale, which then brings us to the present, where we are base building. Now, one of the things that we have on the top here is some connectors where we can put smaller vessels, such as a mining craft, maybe a fighter or something like that, where we can refuel or resupply, as the case may be, or for a miner, unload cargo and get cargo sorting into the refineries. So whatever we need to do for that, we are also armed, which is a good thing. Um, so the only thing left up here maybe, and what I think I will go ahead and do is create a hole. We're going to create a hole back 1 block away from here, because there is, I have to remember where the bulkhead is. I think there's the bulkhead. There's a bulkhead right there, so I need to come back. Yeah, that is the one. So hopefully this right here, which unfortunately is going to blow all kinds of stuff out. But what I want to do is put another something here, whether it be I think we're going to put Gatling guns in both of these squares. So, oops. First things first. I'm not pushing the right button. All right. First things first, we need to put in a conveyor. I'm going to go ahead and turn that conveyor around just because. So we'll put the... Oh, and I didn't turn off Space Master. Sorry about that. That guy there. So what I think I will do is put, and here again, another Space Master evolution is to put a set of LCDs out here, and it's whether I put them up top, which I guess I could and just put one set, or I put one set on the side and one set on the side, and I kind of like the idea of the sets on the side. So we're going to do a Control V, which will put this guy down, and then we're going to put it right here in the corner. So we'll paste those in, and they're going to look a little bit silly right now because there's 2 of them that are not unconfigured, but they are not configured how they really should be. So these are backwards, of course, so we'll turn them the other way. Alright, unfortunately these are all named. I shouldn't have pasted these real quick. So we're going to change the names here, and this is landing B. Unfortunately, I have to do these by pointing at them because there's 2 of them which are titled the same thing. So by doing these independently, I will actually be able to work this out. And of course the other side will be landing A. Okay, and speaking of landing A, let's go ahead and look. The 1B here is now the other side, which is going to be, in fact, landing A. Space back in there. So Control C that, and then we'll come back here and do these again. And just like we did, took out the space, just like we did on the one on the top landing pad, we're going to, we need to take habitat power. We're going to go ahead and take it. We're going to do a Control A to select everything, a Control C to copy what's there, and then we will do landing A power, custom, Control A, Control V, which will paste over the top, and do the same thing for landing B power. Control A, Control V to paste, and OK. And then we'll do the same thing for status. This is our current status, so we'll do a Control A and then a Control C to copy, Control C. and then we'll paste it into landing A status. Control A, Control V to paste, and landing B status. Custom data, Control A, Control V to paste. Alright, and at that point we do need to change, as we did previously, to 0.6 and also to 0.6, which will then prevent those from scrolling. So basically we have created 2 new ones, and in so doing we are now displaying all that information in 4 different places simultaneously, because there's one inside too. Alright, so all of these now have the updated status of everything, so I can see what my power, what materials I have on hand, which as you can see from here is nothing. So the only thing we have here is some uranium and just a tiny bit of ice. Well, no more ice because our oxygen tanks are static. So right now we need a bit more ice even. But landing pad. So what do we need on the landing pad here to really make this thing do what we want it to do? And to answer that is, I like putting embedded connectors in, and then building connectors onto the bottom of a ship. So basically they come in and land, and they can use that connector as either an anchor or to exchange cargo, pull in fuel, pull in ice, whatever they happen to need, as well as get rid of whatever cargo they don't need. So having said that, we kind of started working on an issue inside, so we'll go back inside here. What I really want to do is finish up the conveyor system, which is actually in the next room here, so let me go ahead and close this. We'll go into the next room, and it's the conveyor that will ultimately connect on to our other set of, so that's this here, which is really going to connect on to the other set of Gatling turrets. So, sorry, got a little lost there. So what we need to do here, actually very simple. We are going to put this there, which is a straight conveyor, and we'll do the same thing over here. Put the straight conveyor up, and then we will grind this elbow out, and do the same thing over here. And then we will put in a conveyor junction here, 6, and conveyor junction there. And, oh, I did it again. I did it again. Conveyor junction here, which then should effectively plumb in that upper conveyor there, which then we can put another Gatling turret up there. So success. And then on outside. You good little tiger, and close the door behind you. Alright. At this point, we can place these 2 weapons. As always, I like to place the weapons so the barrels are facing in. And to do that, we rotate it so the control panel is on the opposite side of the barrels. Okay, so in this case, when this thing goes to idle, no movement, then you have the control panel on the back, the access to the inventory on the front with the barrels. So we're going to go ahead and put that there. As you can see, the barrel's facing in, and we're going to do the mirror on this side. So we're going to spin with the barrels facing in. All right. Now, in this case, we're going to turn off idle movement. We're going to select here turrets 4 and 5, and we're going to start going through the different things. So we're going to turn these off on the toolbar. We'll eventually get them put out there. I like to go ahead and engage at 800. We're going to turn off idle movement. We're going to have it target missiles. Most importantly, we're going to turn off the targeting of neutrals. Why the neutrals are set as default on, couldn't tell you, but they are. So once that's set, we actually have a group called turrets. I'm going to do a control left click on turrets, which will bring my group name over here, and these two that are already highlighted, we're going to do a save, which is going to put those two items into the group. They do have an inventory that I want to be able to access, and then we're going to do a show block and terminal off. That way they're not hanging out there. I think we're done with LCDs. So what I'm going to do is highlight everything and then do another control left click on my group, do a save, and then we're going to do a global turn off on the toolbar. You want to be careful with this, because if you've got groups set up where some of that stuff you want on the toolbar, then you just hosed yourself. So don't do like I did. Make sure that you are selecting, which is one of the reasons why I select ahead of time and then turn this either on or off as per what I think is appropriate for that particular device, whatever it happens to be. And then when I do the left click select the group, I do a save and then turn it off on the terminal. That way I'm not messing with the toolbar at all, because clicking this once you have the group selected, you're doing it for the entire group. That may not be what you want. So off in the terminal, babble, but off in the terminal. All right, so you see all we have is groups here, so as organized as we can possibly be, and carrying on. All right, so let me do a Shift F5, which is a quick save. I think I want to put two connectors out here. So what I'm gonna do is actually have the grinding system grind those for me, and the real question is, where do I want to put them? So I kind of need to guesstimate where those should go, and I think I'm going to put them about there. And then I want this one to be symmetrical on this side, which should be about here, I think. I might be a block off. I think I am. I think I'm a block off. Kind of looks like I'm a block off. All right, so let's go ahead and change back to Tiger Orange here, which is our default color. Select that block again to get it back to a big block. All right, then we need to put in the connectors. So we'll put the one there, and then one here. here. This one will hopefully be completed by then. So this is land pad B. Now because there's only one here, I could have done this within the control panel here. And then this is land pad A. Alright, so I should have two connectors. They should both belong to me, which they do, and they are shared with my faction. So then we will go up here. We will do the right click, or sorry, the control and left click, which will select the connectors group. We'll do a save. These are on the toolbar, and we want them on the toolbar so we can, if we have a control console of some kind, access those and put them on our toolbar. We don't have that yet, but we may still do that. And turn off on the terminal. So we should be back to about where we were. Alright, so all that's left is to plumb these guys in, and unfortunately, because all we have is the access down here, we have to figure out how we're going to do that. So I think, all things considered, the easiest way to do that is either I want to avoid doing it in the hangar bay, because I don't really, well, you know, having said that, I have a very convenient place right here under this cargo container that goes right out the floor. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to select the grind color again. This is going to look a little bit silly, but we're going to select a grind color. We're going to do that one. That one should grind, which will open up the path to that one. And we're going to go and do the same thing on this side. Now, why did I put this small container here? What's its purpose? Its purpose really is to provide ready access. So my thoughts here, I think I put these in along with the medical bays off camera. But the idea here was so a lot of times your cargo bay, your hangar bay here, is your initial access point to everything. So this is the first place you're going to be. So having medical stations is actually a good thing. So putting a couple medical stations here just makes it a little more inconvenient, a little more convenient to find and recharge. So that's the purpose of these medical bays. So this this arrangement was a little bit strange because of where I had the conveyor system coming in. So I thought, okay, why not put this in the corner above the door so it's out of the way but still accessible. And then I was like, okay, well, I have an open port down here on the bottom of this medical bay. Maybe I should do something kind of local. And so this is kind of like, oh shit, I'm under attack. I'm going to run to this container that contains a spattering of weapons, a spattering of ammunition, and I should be able to at least marginally defend myself. So that's what the concept here was, to put local storage, one on each side, that would have things like weapons and ammo that a player character could readily grab. On with the build. So change colors, of course, to the tiger orange, and we put that in there and a block back in here, and then we have successfully put conveyor capability out the bottom. 6 to give us a conveyor junction, 1 to give us a block. And if I were really intelligent, I would have not put the block in. I would have floated right out that hole and been on the bottom. Alright, so we'll close the door. Open the door. Close the door. Goes off the side. Now, unfortunately, this leaves... so I want an elbow here. And I guess at that point, it's really just a matter of putting all these in. So, kind of depends on the perspective here on, I tend to interconnect. And the reason why I interconnect is because I really do like redundancy. Redundancy gives you really a damage recovery capability, damage survival capability that you may not have otherwise. So, let's go ahead and get this out here. Where is that? Is that right on the edge? So we do that. We put an elbow in. Back to that one and that one. All right. So that comes forward. We interconnect across here. That one, and then bring the conveyor down this side. All the way to here. Oops. And all green. So what we have effectively done here is build a landing platform that has capability of attaching on other vessels. So it gives them a landing place as well as a resupply place. Now, one of the things I like to do is do a little creative painting and very definitively color where these landing pads are. So in this case, I have a gap of 3. So I'm going to create another gap of 3. 1, 2, 3, which means 4. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. All right, put it there. 9. All right, and in this case, we're going to use the cheaters. So a control is 1 in each direction. A shift, I think, is 5 in each direction. Yep. that right. That I didn't screw this up. That should be right there. Oh, one more. Alright. Now the downside is, of course, I changed the color of those things, which is really all fine and dandy. Not an issue. But, you know, normally I would leave that as the tiger orange. And in fact, as my OCD demands, we're going to change this back. Not really a big deal here. Yep. Running into things. Alright. Back to where it was. Alright. So here is the challenge. The challenge is all of our parts and pieces. And let me go ahead and finish the sentence where I was. At this point, our base is basically done. So we have a living area, we have storage, we have refining, we have assemblers. In fact, both of those are fairly large scale. We have 5 refineries. We have 5 assemblers that are all end-to-end, so they can run cooperative. We have a hangar bay where we can either build or repair. It is closable, so we can work in hostile environments where we can take our mask off if we want. We have actually an abundance of landing. We have landing on the top and on the bottom. What I might consider doing is, and this is, would 5 Gatling and 1 missile be enough for average defense? And the answer is yes, unless you are in the middle of a war zone or you are trying to defend against cataclysmic level meteors, then this should be adequate to protect you. Obviously, if this is a space-based base, then your underside is completely unprotected, because this was not designed. I mean, it was designed for space, but it was kind of designed for that universal, well, I could either use this in space or I could paste it on the surface of a planet. So either way, you have a usable base to work with. So having said that, we have one task left, and that is to, well, really 2 tasks. The first task is to transfer everything from my starter into the base. So how do we do that? Well, there's a couple ways to do that. We do have some challenges which we have to decide how we're going to overcome. Now, one of the things that we can do, and what I think we should do here, is do a little bit of space mastering and connect us in. But let me look here and see if the problem here is really about grid, because if this grid does not match the same kind of snap to, then we can't do this. But if this is close enough that we might be able to connect it in here, which it's not. So the good news is here, this is right there. So what I want to do is we'll grind this one here. Well, actually, because I'm going to have to do this Space Master anyway, then we're going to grind this here. So what we're going to do is do the Space Master, and we're going to try and paste. So this is going to be really interesting. It may or may not work because pasting is still a little wonky. All right. So what did we do? We just created a little bit of a hole there, which is not a big deal, and we'll get to why I did that in a moment. And we're going to leave that right there. So let me fix up this. We need a number 2 toolbar. We're going to do a 6 to get me back on here, and temporarily we're going to put a junction in there. Why did I do that? Because I need a connection point for that thing right there. So what I'm hoping to be able to do, and I don't know if it will let me do it, is put in that. And I hope that did not connect on. I don't know if it did or not. It might have. I can't tell if there's... Nope, it is. It looks like it's not touching. Or is it touching? Is it touching? I think there's a tiny, tiny gap there. Well, we'll find out. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is do an F5 quick save, which thankfully gets rid of the flashy, whatever the heck that is. We're going to go into Alt F10 and in this case turn Space Master back on because I want to do some cutting and pasting here. So we're going to do a Control X, which should, okay, if my green lines are indicating correctly, everything is good. Yep. We're going to do a Control V, which will paste that right back in the world. And I'm going to use that. Oops, I need to get myself out of the box, the binding box. I've got something. All right. We can fix this. We have options. 1, 2, 3. The trick is to get this out of the binding box here, and also to get me out of the binding box. All right, so we'll do a Control X again, a Control V again, which should paste this right back into the world. That. All right, there it is. And when I click, there we go. All right, so what have we accomplished here is actually to connect the old system here, which is this, into the new system. So what I really want to do here is copy everything across, which is really to say pull it into the other container. Now, here's the challenge. Challenge. All right. I'm gonna cheat. Okay. Let me go ahead and turn off Space Master so we can do this. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a connection point between these two grids. There's a method to the madness, really. Really there is. So this is a new connection right here. And what I want to do is break this connection. So we're going to go ahead and do a grind here. And the reason why I created a new connection is because I want that to remain connected, even when I disconnect this. What we're going to do here is bring up G. We're going to go into cargo blocks and grab a sorter. And then we're going to place that sorter into the world here. And when the sorter builds, we're actually going to go over here and turn it on to drain all. And what this should do at this point is now pull all of the cargo from the bottom and stuff it into the top. That's the goal. Because unfortunately, I did not connectorize this. I probably coulda, shoulda done that. But so the idea here is that we want to drag everything possible out of this lower section and get it into the upper section. So how can we be sure that we did that? So that cargo container is now empty. So we've got a couple options here. We can either paint these cargo containers as we go, which would be my vote. And the reason that's my vote is because I want to dismantle this thing anyway. So let's go ahead and do number 2, a block. I'm going to change the color to my grinding color and then grind that. So now I have verified that that is empty, so I'm going to grind it. Now I might as well, as we're going along here, change all of these. Because ultimately we need to grind all these down too. So this has been critical in our survival, but now that we have a larger base, then it is no longer needed. There we go. All right. We don't really have any use for this. We can start grinding down different pieces. Grind down the antenna here. Piece at a time. Battery. Medical bay. We no longer need oxygen on this platform. Down, Grind our connector down. Alright. Now, let's see if this should be interconnected into that container. Yes, they are. So let's go ahead and we can dismantle all of this equipment. Which is no longer needed. We can dismantle this tank, which is no longer needed. And then dismantle these guys. And once all those are gone, refinery number 2. Took a little while. And refinery number 1. Alright, our reactors and the initial container. The oxygen tanks. Junctions. And then the elbows and conveyors here, which basically connected this lower portion on anyway. All right. So we should be able to. Oh, there's a bunch of stuff there. Question is, why isn't that pulling materials? Could just be because things are really full. Okay, inventory. Not a whole lot there, but a lot of volume. So we are pulling uranium from somewhere. Well, the question is this thing okay? Sorter. Me. Drain all. Inventory. Yeah, it's just going really slowly. Well, 3,000 liters. I guess I can understand why. Not gonna go very fast. Alright. I guess we need a target. So this is going to be a temporary measure. But what I want to do is give myself a temporary place where I can store everything. So put that there. I'm going to bring up a Kenti block, which is called an elsewhere container, which is right here. This is kind of an infinite container. it's going to take forever to build because it's pretty pricey. Not as pricey as it should be, but pretty pricey. Okay, now why did I do this? Because this is the only structure on this entire base that's called the elsewhere container. So it gives me a known container that I can go to and pull everything into it that I can. So what I want to do is, this is going to be my destination, and see, the thing about sorters, they can only move so much at a time. However, they are also a conveyor, so you can actually push things through them at the limits of the conveyor system, not the limits of. Okay, so this one's empty, but I can't get rid of it yet because it's connected here. So what I really could do, I guess, is connect this into there. That wouldn't be bad. Which means I could pull all the last of the stuff in through that. So let's go ahead and do that. That was a medical bay. I didn't want a medical bay. Alright, sorry about that. Alright, so we need to, let's do a little creative grinding here. There's that. Back over to 2 and number 6. We're going to put an elbow here, facing up, and hopefully that will reconnect back in. Yes, indeed. Alright, so theoretically this should be empty, which it is. So we're going to go back to our painting colors rather than grind it down ourselves. And then select and paint. And then that should grind this thing down. Yes, indeed. Alright, turn that off. Go into this. Obviously there was a lot of stuff here. There still is. So over here we're going to do elsewhere. So there's a lot of stuff here that is not very slowly being pulled in there. But that is the closest container to the sorter, so it's going to go and put that in there. So what we're going to do is copy these across, because we can copy at the speed of the conveyor rather than be limited by the speed of the sorter. Alright, so container 2 is now empty, which is this one here, which means we can paint it. Number whatever. Okay, so container 1. We're going to do the same thing. Bring up our elsewhere container, and we're going to copy all of this into that container. Alright, there it is. Which means now we can color that one. Maybe. Alright, we're slowly making progress, dismantling. So this has got quite a bit. We're going to do the same thing elsewhere, and then copy all this stuff in. And then now that that's empty, paint. Move on to the last container. Inventory, not a whole lot there. Well, actually, yeah, a whole lot there. Same thing again. Elsewhere, and copy everything across. So that's our last cargo container on this side. I'm going to do one more thing. Elsewhere container. I'm going to go back to my personal inventory because I have stuff. So I want to go ahead and copy that stuff in and get it out of my inventory. Alright, so the good news here is that we are empty as far as this mechanism goes. So let's go ahead and do these batteries. Unfortunately, we do lose parts with the batteries. The power cells will not come across. Okay. Now the challenge here is that ultimately we're going to get down to one item, which is really this one here, to dismantle everything. So there's that one and that one. That one and that one. Okay, and unfortunately this thing cannot dismantle itself, but it can dismantle this stuff. So what we're going to do is have it dismantle all of that. Okay. And then we will look at the inventory, take this all in, and then pull out our own grinder and grind it down. There it is. So, we will probably continue because this is just kind of administrative stuff. There's no need to watch everything. But what we have done is dismantle our original base, which is really to say this utility satellite. We have transferred everything from that, so I'm kind of speaking out of order here, into this temporary container. And the reason I put it in this container is because this container has a unique name. Now, I could have done that with one of the base containers that's there, but because it was a large cargo container on the original base, the original utility satellite, and large cargo container on the base here, then it was kind of hard to differentiate what it is. It's directly connected, so I don't have that color differential that you would normally see on the other side of like a connector, for example. So what I wanted to do is create a unique place, and that was this container. So obviously if you're playing a vanilla game, you're not going to have this container, but you could have done the same thing with a large container, although there was enough materials in that other container that you would have filled a large container. So the idea here is that we will push all of this material into the base containers, the base storage area, and then we will go ahead and eliminate this and then get this junction back to being an elbow instead of what it is now, instead of a junction. So with that having been said, this is Kenty Tiger signing off. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.